Yeah. Thanks again for you all for joining this fireside chat, and thank you so much, Gordon, for taking time to talk to us. Really appreciate
My
that.
pleasure. My
Yeah.
pleasure.
Gordon is the former Chief Learning Officer of IBM. He was also a learning leader at PwC for a long time, and he has a lot of experience also building AI products himself at IBM for in the learning space. So we're very excited to have you to be here, Gordon. Thanks again.
Thank you. And thank you for inviting me. And I'll make one tiny correction just in case anybody's confused. I was director at PwC Consulting. So I am not an accountant. I'm not a bean counter by trade, but I have managed some wonderful budgets. And I think with the help of people like Tiffany, we managed them extremely well. So as you can hear, I'm not from these shores. I give you a little bit of background. I came over here in 2001 with PwC Consulting on an 18-month tour of duty, and I'm still here because a year into that 18-month tour of duty, IBM very wisely acquired PwC Consulting. And so I started my whole sort of career gig over again. So there is life after PwCC, and created a group called the Center for Advanced Learning. We started off with 7 people in 2002. We ended up with nearly 580 at its peak. And I retired in 2022 as the Chief Learning Officer for IBM. So my background has been, even before PwC, has been in developing people. I believe in achieving power through empowering others, and not power just for power's sake, but actually to create something a bit special. So I'm going to be sharing a bit about that today. But I know Pianpian asked me a few questions, and I'll just kick off with the first one, Pianpian, unless you want to ask me. But I know you were saying to me, what do I think are the sort of the biggest gaps in the AI marketplace today? For gaps, I read opportunities, and let's face it, we know there's probably half a dozen AI apps are going to be launched today. But I think there are some major opportunities, and I want to just fly up a bit on the opportunities and then look at 4 constituencies. The first one is companies. We all know that if you go back to any of the CEO surveys over the last 10 to 12 years, the biggest thing they're interested in is a skills-based organization. So they have to find, they have to develop, and they have to retain the best skills, the best talent they can get. So that's one constituency. The next constituency that I think sometimes gets left out of these calls is our customers, or ABC, let's call them ABC Incorporated.
Mm,
Their customers. They're looking for value for money. They're looking for a service or a product or an offering that's going to meet their business needs. They're looking for a trusted supplier, and they want a good experience with that trusted supplier. And if you've looked at any of the research on engagement, you'll know that 67% of engagement is driven by experience. So we can keep customers engaged, then you get reduced churn, which in turn leads to the next constituency, shareholders and investors, because what they're looking for is brand value. They're looking for a return on their investment. And they don't want to be investing in a company that's share prices going down, they're getting bad publicity, they don't have a good social profile, they've got constant customer churn and things like that. Now, the thing to me that holds that all together is the 4th constituency, and this is where I think AI really has the biggest part to play, and that's the workforce. Because we've had AI platforms for years that have managed the process. And by that, I mean platforms like SuccessFactors, Workday, Oracle HCM, whatever. So they'll take it from, and they get better, there's no question. So they'll take it from If you look at the 5 pivot points in talent management, they look at recruitment. So they use AI in the recruitment space, use AI in the pre-hire space, onboarding, development, and internal career mobility. There's even a subsection now that's involved in a term I absolutely hate, outboarding. I think it's another way of saying sort of, you know, punitive resource management, but there you go. So we've got these platforms, but they manage the process. And what's being left out in that whole thing is the human aspect of the workforce. And one of my big heroes, shout out for Satya Nadella, CEO of Microsoft, he said, AI will make us more human, not less. So first thing I'm going to say is, I think if anybody is pushing against AI and says this is a bad thing for humanity, it's going to take away our jobs, it's making us more insecure, we don't have as many options as we had in the past, I say, I'm sorry, that's false. What it's done is it's taken away some of the humdrum, some of the labor intensive, the repeat types of tasks that we used to ask people to do, which actually in many cases, you know, they could have done easily, and they did them easily, which meant they kind of got stuck, they got pigeonholed in a career path. It's taken that away. So it's allowed us as human beings to look more to our human relationships, how we collaborate with each other, how we negotiate, how we build and maintain trust, how we take accountability. So these are all the things that are happening inside the workforce just now, but it's still being managed almost on a process basis. So I'm I'm not knocking. I've worked for large organizations in the past. Yes, we want efficiency. Yes, we want effectiveness. But I come back to that research point again. If we want to retain and develop top talent, we have to engage with them. And the way we engage, at least 67 to 70% of that is through experience. And AI can give us that experience. It can allow us to do things that will help the individual. But there's a key point missing. So let me just stop there because I want to take any questions as we go along and see if there's any pushback or if there's any question mark around what I said just now. And it will give me a chance to have a sip of my coffee.
Great, yeah. And I realized I didn't introduce myself. My name is Pianpian, founder and CEO of Amotions. Amotions scales and transforms the capabilities and growth of employees and managers with AI power, real-time coaching and suggestions. So we're in the AI space that Gordon's talking about. Now, Gordon, you made a good point about AI could help transform and change the employee experience. What would be an ideal employee experience in your mind that would kind of keep them developed and keep them engaged and keep them retained?
Well, I think there's one other element that I'd throw in it because it's, excuse me, it's not just going to be AI, because we have a major issue in most organizations right now, and it's only started to be, I would say, recognized in the last 2 years. We have the opportunity to develop talent through AI and through various technology solutions. But what we need are talent developers on the ground. Now we have them in place in every single organization that I know. Since I retired, I've become a strategic advisor to startups. I help companies with AI implementation and the benefits of AI adoption and a framework I've developed to get AI adoption. But I know in each one of those companies, the talent developers are on the ground and they're called first line and second line managers. But right now, and I think Deloitte, it was either Deloitte or McKinsey, came out with a book, I believe last year, Managing from the Middle. And we use managers, and I say we, companies use managers as the people that own the process. They're the folks that have to deliver the bad messages. They're the folks that, because, budgets are slashed here, there, and everywhere, they have to deliver to maybe even good, competitors, or good employees, sorry, that they've got a competitor in the team and this person's going to get more than they have. And we've created, particularly post-pandemic, a high level of insecurity inside organizations felt by managers. And when people are feeling insecure, they can do two things. They can pull the hatch down. They don't want to get involved. They just keep it level and do what they need to do. And that's it. Or they build up what I call a security blanket around them. And that security blanket is their team. It's the size of their team, the productivity of the team. And what happens, therefore, is if somebody suddenly says, I've been developing on my own some skills, no thanks to you, Mr. or Mrs. Manager, and I see there's a job over there, I'd like to go for it. That manager will hold on like crazy to keep them there. So you immediately kill one of the big pivot points inside any talent management life cycle, and that's internal career mobility. So I'm sorry if I'm laboring on this a bit about talent development, but we have to have the framework right before we can then leverage AI, because you can leverage AI to coach managers on how to be a better coach. I know what Pian and the team have created is around coaching. You can actually do role play, so you can find out. And that's because this generation of AI, so much of it is, is just proactive, or sorry, reactive. You ask a question, you get an answer, and that's it. That increases your knowledge base. If you have an agentic AI model, which will genuinely interact and respond with you, so that if you ask it a question, the agent will come back and will start to give you some context to your question, and will give you a perhaps the sources and other topics that are related that you might not have considered. What that starts to do is one of the greatest gift that mankind has ever had. It starts to ignite curiosity. And unless we can get curiosity back into our workforce, where they're starting to look a little bit outside the job they do just now, and starting to genuinely learn, not just get an answer, which they may forget tomorrow, but get taken into an environment where AI, the environment itself, will actually help them learn and will respond to their questions and their needs, help them to understand what their needs are. And eventually, I'm looking for an AI tool that will actually do. Tiffany knows because she worked on it with us. We created the world's first AI-driven learning platform, launched it on May 30th, 2016. Glorious day, I'll never forget. And it allowed people to not only get all the information they needed, but it would look at their search pattern and put up, say, a bit like the Amazon model, people like you bought this. So we used AI early on for learning. And that's what we've got to do. That's the thing that really excites me about AI, is how we can use it to develop the human capacity inside our organizations. So it's the way that people think, help them to develop critical thinking powers, help them to look at their own health and resilience. I think it's coming out either today or tomorrow, but there's a film produced by a Harvard professor called John Della Volpa, and it's called The Power of Z. We have a whole generation of people coming up who are going to be the 50%, they're going to be 50% of our workforce in 6 or 7 years, and they're struggling with health, mental health. They're struggling with resilience. They can't see paths forward. AI could help us to help that generation right now. And it's one of the reasons why, I agreed to do this with Pian, because I believe that emotions is something that will help the individual, but will help the manager to help the individual as well. That's the big prize. We've got to engage our workforce. We've got to give them the right experience. We've got to show them that we trust them, and therefore they will start to trust the organization. Trust, it's very difficult to build up. And if you ever break it, it's incredibly difficult to rebuild. But we need to have trust. We need to have diverse organizations, and not just what some people have done and say, right, okay, we need to get a 5% of this demographic and a 10% of that demographic. That's plain numbers. That's plain numbers. There should be no bias whatsoever. You should be recruiting people based on their skill set, their attributes. More and more, I think you should be recruiting them based on their values, based on their experience, but realize that a great resume, especially if you're getting an experienced hire in, what you're getting is somebody who has been at the pinnacle of their job because of the network they had in, their previous company. And in many cases, they're just going to have to start all over again. So to accelerate their development, AI solutions, AI applications, talent developer managers, they are going to be critical. Again, I'm laboring this point because I think it's right. We have to get the individual thinking right. We have to get team management right. How we use AI to connect with each other, how we use it to innovate, how we use it to check in on people. And, you might say, well, we've got loads of channels to do that. We've got Slack, we've got tons of different things, tons of way of doing it. And we don't do it too carefully at times, and we don't do it too cleverly. So again, let me stop there because I don't want to go down some rabbit holes and not answer the questions that you and Pian are looking for from me. I like Michelle's, I call them reactions or emojis coming up. That's great. I'll send you my address. You can send me a birthday cake or something.
I have a question.
Yes.
So, Gordon, what do you think about the role of culture in all of this and also training? Could this completely take the place of training, or do you think there's a role in terms of help supporting the managers?
Right. I think, first of all, thank you for the question. It's great. I think culture is something so many organizations aspire to, but because they don't think it out, and it usually comes from the C-suite, in many cases, it doesn't work. Culture should be the way we do things around here and the way we do it properly, with respect for others, with truth, with integrity, with an eye to not just on what we produce, but how we are perceived in the eyes of our customers, our potential investors, and society as a whole. So culture is incredibly, incredibly important. Now, I'm just going to say one thing. I hate the word training. I hate the word training because I have pit bulls. I have rescued pit bulls. I have trained them, right? Learning, I think, is the word for me, because I want to respect the individual who has taken it upon themselves to learn. Now, we can learn skills very, very quickly, and AI can help us to do that. But to learn a capability over time means enhancing that skill. It means practicing it regularly. It means improvising. It means improving. It means listening to other people and seeing how that can be molded and shifted and shaped. So I think it's incredibly important. And I think one of the human gifts that we give is to assist people to be continuous learners. I'll share one study we did in IBM, and Tiffany might remember this, is we created a whole new framework for personal development learning. And we originally called it Think 40 because our CEO at the time, Junior Mehti, said to me, we want to get people up to doing 40 hours a year on personal development. And everybody thought, oh, this is going to be a difficult task. We did that. And now the average IBMer does over 110, 112 hours per year. but we used to call them super learners. So we did some study work on them, and this is how important it is. We found out that our super learners over a 6-month period, had a 27% propensity to be promoted and a 22% propensity to have a compensation increase. What we also found out is that they had an 8% propensity to leave the company. Now, I don't know if they were just taking lots and lots and lots of learning because they were getting themselves ready for the next job. But we then analyzed those 8% and said, some of these people we don't want to lose. So that gave us a red flag to then start doing proactive retention. And over the next 6-month period, we cut that number from 8% down to 4%. We actually saved 50% of the people who otherwise would have left us. So if we think about find, develop, retain, that was a big impact there. So this is an opportunity for anybody that's in talent management with an organization or HR, whatever you call, whatever your job is, to generate and show value of investments in technology, investments in AI, but how we then use them to enhance the user experience to find, develop, and retain top talent inside that organization. So culture, training / learning, incredibly important. It's the building blocks, and quite honestly, from a societal perspective, I actually believe, I started sort of hawking this idea about 7 or 8 years ago. Employability is more important than employment, because employers can have a habit of letting workers down every now and then. They have a change of direction. They've decided amongst themselves how they're going to carve up the profits, and this division isn't profitable anymore to them, and people get sliced. Employability keeps the power inside the individual. And that's where I think AI can help, because it can help to take them into areas of learning. And then if enough people do it, that starts to become part of the culture. So they're inextricably linked, the power of learning and the creation of a positive culture inside the organization. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for the question, Tiffany. Thanks, Gordon, for that. Gordon, for follow on your earlier point, like what does a proactive AI buddy look like to you? Like how would it kind of generate the curiosity in people and help them expand their capabilities and potentials?
I think we're halfway there. And Emotions is one of the applications that does this. I can think of others. I'm associated with another one, which is an HR focused platform called Atlas Copilot, and that's an agentic offering also. So when somebody asks a question in Emotions, they get an immediate response, and then they have a contextual response, which takes it a little bit further and helps somebody expand their thinking on it, as I say, ignite their curiosity and answer any questions that maybe they didn't have 5, 10, 15 minutes ago. So it's a developmental environment. And that's what I think is, that to me, that's the sort of yin of a buddy. The yang would be a more proactive, so that and you can switch this function off if you want. So I open up my laptop at silly o'clock in the morning. I'm going to get into something. I get a little message from my buddy, and I could name it. I can get whatever voice, I get whatever language I want, and it says, "Hi, looking at your schedule today, you've got a meeting with ABC Limited, the famous ABC Limited, and you're going to be talking about product development. The last time we looked at this, you were majoring on this part, this part, this part. There's some new information that's just come out on creative thinking and innovation in this industry segment. Would you like to look at it?" That, to me, That would be the proactive body that I want. And if it becomes annoying, I'll just say, whatever I've called it, buddy, I'm really focused on this just now, but this is great. Put it in a report for me and let me have it by midday today, because I'm meeting them at 3 o'clock. And if I've got the time to do it, I'll go through that. And if I am, and I'm on my way there, and this is mobile, and I'm saying the one thing I haven't looked at, buddy, is this whole question of retooling in order to make this service or this offering available. Any quick advice you've got on how we could retool to do this? That to me would be wonderful. Now, that is taking it to a stage we're not at yet. But there's an old saying: what man can conceive, man can achieve, and we will achieve that. But how fast it takes, or how quick it takes, I don't know. But that's what I'd look for in a proactive buddy, one that would actually know what I'm doing and is prepared to help me with that. So that means we've got to give it access to things like diary. We've got to give it access to my job role, my clients if I'm client facing, my team if I'm not. It looks like it's been 4 weeks since you've actually spoken to Tiffany, and I know from her calendar she's been on vacation for 2 of them, but she's been back now, and blah 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 blah, something like that. That would be so. If you've got any development ideas going just now, Pianpian, stick that on the roadmap.
Yeah. I mean, there's things that we're actively looking into in terms of having the AI to tap into different systems to get the information and intelligence on what someone has been doing and what they're planning to do, and what their situations are. So having the AI to be able to have a holistic view of somebody and being able to support and coach them in the moment of need. So that's something we're looking into as well. And you talk about the proactiveness, which is the AI being able to kind of proactively thinking ahead what's coming up and what they could coach and help people on. So it's not just waiting for someone to ask a question and answers. The AI can kind of have the intelligence of knowing, anticipating what's coming up and to suggest. We're also looking at things like having the AI to be kind of following me around and listening in meetings like this, virtual meetings, and then being able to give real-time suggestions and coaching as well.
Well, I think one of the best, and you're using it obviously today, I think Otter is great, because not everybody can make every meeting. And if you've got the guest list of, say, 10 people and 9 of them turn up or 8 of them turn up, whatever, and the 2 that could make it for whatever reason, if they can get the gist of the conversation and who said what, and very importantly, any actions that are arising, that's great. And I think things like that we should be lacing into our everyday work. Now, some people might say, I don't want this thing following me around. I don't want it tracking me around. And by the way, the example I gave there, that is not taking away the role of the manager as the talent developer. That's just something, for an individual person. But for a manager, it could be the same thing. Hey, Gordon, you've got a span of control of 12. You've got 2 people who've been here less than a year. You've got 5 people who've been here, 3 years plus, and you got the warriors that have been here forever, and they're doing it. And it can give me individual clues as to some of the development activities I should be doing with those individuals or as a team. So that's the kind of proactive buddy I think I hope the next year brings to us, where it is actually reaching out and saying, I'm not just here to help you, I'm going to help you.
That's a really good point. Sometimes people might not think of asking for help, or might not have a chance to ask for help, and the AI kind of detecting when someone might need help and just proactively coming up to give to provide help. It's almost like a mentor.
Yeah.
And I mean, and a coach too, detecting when someone will need support at the moment.
Yep.
And for you talking about earlier, it's important to turn managers and yeah, bless you, turn managers, first line and second line managers into talent developers, and that's something we're part of things that we're looking into as well. How do we use AI to scale the capability of managers so they can I mean they can grow themselves faster, but they also kind of instead of one manager supporting 5 uh, or 6 employees, now we can have one manager supporting more employees because of the AI being able to be assisting and supporting along the way as well. So that's something we're looking into. Do you have
Yeah.
anything to add in terms of leveraging?
Excuse me.
Let's see.
I think it depends on the leadership of the organization, because again, so I say you've got managers who right now their team is their security blanket at a time when they're feeling tremendously under pressure. So you have to change the way that they're incentivized. You have to change the way that they're rewarded, compensated, and celebrated. They've got to be called out. Now, this is not a brand new idea. When I was with PwC Consulting in the 90s, we had 6 points, and you had to get a check in every one of those boxes in order to get your full annual bonus and be considered for promotion, etc. And one of those boxes was give back. Now you call that now talent development, but give back was you either had to share winning proposals, or you had to have mentored so many people, or you had to have facilitated workshop for new employees or people who are entry-level consultants or whatever, or you had to put white papers in, so thoughtware and things like that. If you didn't do it, you didn't get your full compensation, your full incentivization. So there has to be something for them. And then the next thing, and this is going to sound like, it's going against it all, is don't be so quick when they're successful in this role to promote them. Because the number of times that really good performers have been promoted out of the environment where they're doing really, really well, and because they've succeeded, people think, well, this guy's a second line manager, or this girl is a, fantastic first line manager. They should be an executive, and they put them there, and they haven't prepared them, and they flounder, and they wonder why this person who's a superstar before isn't making it anymore. So don't be quick to promote the key talent developers that are really making a difference, compensate them and celebrate it and call them out. Manager of the year teams and things like that. In IBM, they have the top 1,000, and it's for sellers and it's for individual contributors, things like that. Other companies should be doing things like that. And I'm not saying IBM's cracked this code on using managers as talent developers, but I can tell you they have not cracked that code. No matter how hard we tried, we didn't get them to crack that code. But that's what I do. I think they have to be incentivized. And I use the word celebrated. It's something that a lot of organizations are so poor at. You know, they can talk about the big wins they had. We got this client in, or we managed to snag this federal government contract and things like that. There's other things that can be celebrated as well. And teams should have a regular cadence of celebration and communicating it. And I think there should be again, I go back to IBM days, we used to get a small budget for these things called blue points that we could give to people that were regular contributors, but we should have had more. So people want to be recognized if they've done a good job. And one thing I will share, if anybody wants to repeat this in their company, it certainly paid massive dividends for IBM, is if you've ever read any of the works of a gentleman called Richard Thaler, who wrote a book called Nudging, and he actually won a Nobel Prize for it, is we would recognize these super learners, but we had different categories of super learner. So we had, see if you can remember them, Tiffany. 120 hours per year, you were a bronze learner. 160 hours of learning a year, you were a silver learner. 200 plus, you were a gold learner. And again, this isn't an original idea. It's what the airlines do all the time. Hey, you're a blue card, you get another 2 trips and you'll be bronze, silver, gold. Look at all the benefits you get. What we did was we recognized those people and we nudged them up to the next level. And we gave them a thing called Frame It, so they could get their picture in a different color frame, and they put it on LinkedIn, they could put it there. We celebrated them and we said, you're only a few more hours away from the next level. And that's what prompted us to find out, so what's in it for them other than the social or the gamification aspect. And that's when we found out that people were getting the bigger compensation, the bigger promotions, but also, thinking of leaving. So we had to preempt that. There was one other benefit we got out of that as well, is when people achieved those levels or they reached certain milestones, my team would blast them out with a congratulatory email. And we had at the end of it a little tag saying, if you think this is great and if you're really happy with what you're doing and you're happy with your achievements, let other people know as well. And it was a link to Glassdoor. And we moved the Glassdoor needle when it came to the view of the company and the view of the CEO. And we moved it significantly. And if you know anything about Glassdoor stats, you'll know you have to get massive positive feedback to move it even 1 or 2 or 3 points. We moved it quite a lot. So that's a long-winded answer, but these are the things that you should be doing, I think, to make sure that managers are really recognized, incentivized to be talent developers. Because if you don't have a good internal career mobility journey inside the company, you're actually helping another company's internal career mobility, because they're going to join them. So I think it is very, 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 very important. I do have one other thing to say, by the way, about people leaving the company. I strongly believe that when somebody leaves your team or a company, you celebrate, because they become one of 4 people after they've left the company. The worst option is to become a detractor. So, they badmouth you, this, that, and the next thing. So it's got to be a positive experience if they leave. The second option is to become an influencer. They might work for a customer of yours, and they can influence your services and their offerings. They might even become a buyer. But the best one is they can become rehires. And when you get somebody who's left the company and then comes back as a rehire, that's incredibly positive. So if somebody's left a company, maybe when the culture and the experience wasn't too good, use AI to create this wonderful experience, so that if somebody does leave and they look back and think, wow, things have really changed there. I wonder if there's any job openings there. And they come back. And once they come back, they're there for life. If, it's a good culture, you want to keep them and they want to stay with you.
That's a great point. Yeah, thank you. We're actually also thinking about, even inside our AI platform, implementing ways to celebrate wins and get people
Great.
get people feel like they have achieved things as they are growing themselves. So, and I mean, we're thinking about like what kind of support we can provide to managers leveraging AI to get them sort through different challenges they might be facing, handling the pressure from both the up and
Yeah.
from different levels and different directions. Now, you mentioned something about sellers at IBM, and sounds like that's one of the kind of functions that you supported as well. What kind of coaching and help do you think sellers could benefit in this AI revolution, or just in general?
Again, it isn't new, because I can remember back to days that were even pre-PWCC, when I was involved in high-end individual wealth sales. Myself and my team of advisors, we did role play every single day, every single day. And I think what you have in Emotions is, and in IBM, we had a great sales enablement organization. We uh, we hired retired IBM sales executives who wanted to give back, and it gave them a sense of purpose in retirement. And they would actually do calls, dummy calls. They'd be in one office, our salespeople would be in another office, and they'd be phoning them up as prospective clients. And because they had it in their DNA, that was the best role play we could do. One of the first things you shared with me when you showed me Emotions was the ability to role play. And for sellers, you can't beat it. It's like, if you want to get better at your game of tennis, or you want to get better at golf or anything, you practice, practice, practice. And yet I'm amazed at the lack of practice that goes on inside organizations for people who do their job, and it supports their family, it supports their career aspirations. Well, don't practice enough. So if you've got something that makes practice and role play attractive, I think people are going to glom onto that, really glom onto it. And I'm not taking away from the role of the manager, because there's an old model called OFD, of observation, feedback, and demonstration. So you observe somebody doing something, you give them feedback, and then you demonstrate how it could be done better, and you go like that. It
Yep.
gets to be a virtuous cycle.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point. We're investing more of the role play functionality that we have. So the AI can role play as an employee, and as a customer, as a client. I can show you quickly. And as a colleague, but we're also working with companies to embed their own, for example, like their own scenarios, their own playbooks. So the AI can also role play based on company specific scenarios and situations. And then at the end of the role play, the AI can also do an assessment on how someone has done in this role play situation. And we can even have the users set the AI to be role-playing specific personalities, specific profiles, so it's kind of personalized to each company and each seller situation as well.
Yeah, and I don't know how you would build this in, but I would urge you. The one thing that separates really good sellers and fantastic sellers is they both know their sales process inside out, but the fantastic sellers know the customer's buying process. And I'm just amazed at times how many people don't delve into that when they're actually having a sales interaction, because you could have the best product in the world, you could have the best you've heard me say this before, Pianpian. Great sellers use their ears and their mouth in the ratio that God gave them to them. And they're fabulous listeners, they're great at asking questions, they're great at knowing when to use an open question, when to use a closed question. But if they don't know the buying constraints that individual's under, they go away scratching their head and saying, love the product, said they could really use it, price isn't a problem, What's going on? You need to find out what the 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 command line is. Yeah, you've got a budget, Gordon, but you need to clear it with finance, you need to clear it with legal, and you got to get the eagles from procurement involved as well. Yeah. So that's something. I don't know how you build that in. Maybe I'm asking for the moon when I ask that, but it's something that maybe you could put as part of your role play. Remember to ask the prospective buyer what the buying process is, and how can we work with them to accelerate that process. Maybe I've answered the question I'm asking you. I don't know. But,
Yeah.
you know, we should be doing that as well. Sales process and
Yeah.
buying process.
Yeah. Here's how we're thinking about it. I mean, there's the before meeting kind of prep. So we can have the AI generate some plans for based on understanding of the customers' buying process and their industry and the customer profile, as well as the industry itself and the company and the competitors. The AI can generate a list of, can generate a game plan and then have a little list of things that to make sure that the seller will ask. And then making sure questions that seller can ask, but making sure the information to present to the customer and also to collect back from the customer. And then that's the pre-meeting game plan. And then during the meeting, if the seller and the customers are open to that, the AI can be there listening at the same time, and the AI can detect how much time a customer has been talking, how much time has the seller have been talking, and then can listen in and see if the seller has covered the critical points and also ask the critical questions. If not, the AI can prompt and suggest like remember to ask these questions. So yeah, that's how we think about it.
And that's great. And that'll do us for the next 2 to 3 years, because looking into my crystal ball just now, 3 years from now, I would imagine a significant proportion of business to business sales are done by AI. So you will get a procurement AI environment for the customer, and you get a services and offering AI for the company that sells it. And this company that's in the market for something, somebody will give it the requirements and say, we've got this budget, we needed to be able to do that, we need to be able to do this. And the procurement AI will say, yeah, well, ABC, good old ABC company, they do it, but so do DEF, and so do 1, 2, 3, and so do 5, 6, 7. This one, however, has these features, which would be there, and it can easily integrate with our technology. We have had a negotiation meeting which lasted 2 nanoseconds, and we can get it for a 15% discount. Does that work? Yeah, we'll buy it. And I tell you, there will be a lot of high-end, high-value sellers will still be required to build trust, but a lot of what I call meat and potatoes procurement is going to be done by AI on both the seller side and the buyer side.
So you think about the AI will automate some of the process directly interacting with customers, and that from the customer side it will be also looking at solutions, examining solutions. But tell me more about the trust part, like which part of the buying and selling process you think still needs humans to be involved, and then how does that impact the skills that as humans that we need to develop so we're not going to be replaced by AI?
I'm trying to remember the name of the guy that brought up this methodology, and he wrote a book about it. It was out in the 90s, and it's called The Trusted Business Advisor. So if you want to Google the book, and basically it started off by you being a subject matter expert in a chosen area. So somebody wants to buy your platform, okay? So you're the expert in it, you help them there. You then help them to take, they say, we've got some other issues here and we need you to expand. You did a great job with the Emotions platform. Do you have any ideas how we may be able to do this? So it's a case of like a sort of cross-selling. And then the next stage was, we're having some real difficulty with this group over here, or that seller there. Can you suggest something how we can actually deal with it? The last one is when they ask you to help them with a problem that's got absolutely nothing to do with what you do, how the expertise that you're there for. So it could be an organizational transformation question. It could be, how do we modify our culture? It could be anything, but it's nothing at all to do with what originally got you in the door. And that's, if you like, the trusted advisor journey. If your application or any application can take somebody through that TBA journey, that's how you do it. But it's all built on trust. And again, I said earlier on, you can build trust, you can maintain it. If ever you break it, chances are you'll never get it back again. But again, that comes down to the human being. You know, let's say we had business to business AI going on at some point, and for whatever reason, the seller company said, yeah, it's coming up to contract renewal time. We gave it to you for 2A, but now it's going to be 3.5A. And said, hang on, wait a minute. And so it refers it to procurement department and said, oh no, hang on, no. They're trying to stiff us here. No. Look elsewhere for a similar product. So there is an element even of trust when there's a purely AI interaction.
Yeah.
It's driven by humans.
What are the skills people you think should be developing in this age, and what are the ways you think people should be embracing AI to help themselves develop these skills?
Right. Well, I think from an individual perspective, it's mentioned already, you got to be a continuous learner. You got to have emotional intelligence. You got to be able to look at people, and you've got to be able to look after yourself. So you need to realize that, you know, you are a human being. You got frailties, whatever. There's a lot of pressure going on, a lot of things happening, and your work is only one aspect of your life. And quite honestly, if you've got a family and things like that, it's not the most important aspect of your life. So I think as an individual, you need to develop that. When you're looking at the sort of critical skills that you need to develop, it's things like complex problem solving, analytics, and how do you create new ideas and become an innovator. Then you've got to think about, well, I work as part of a team. So how do I become an inclusive individual and ensure that everybody that I work with, we're in an inclusive environment? How do I build and maintain trust? How do I collaborate effectively? How do I be open to changes to what I do already? So how do I become an adaptive teammate? And then I think I know I've got kids, 26, 31, 39, and they change jobs and things like that. And more they're going for some really smart companies. They're being asked about their values. And I think again, it comes back to this thing about a company wanting to increase the brand value. You have to have some societal impact. I mean, we're living in a world, and you know, there's critical climate deniers, and there's income inequality deniers, and there are still gaps in equal opportunity when it comes to pay for, you know, for differences in gender pay. It's crazy. It's ridiculous. So you know, we've got to have some feeling for what some of the societal changes are that are required. So I think individual, look after yourself, critical skills, what you bring to the organization, your team building skills, and your societal values. If you can get all of them right, I think you achieve that nirvana, which is called a sense of purpose at work.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Gordon. Audience, if anyone has any last minute questions there? Not. Thank you so much, Gordon. This is very helpful and inspiring. We're very honored to have you here. Thank you so much for sharing all these insights and learning from your many years of experience as a learning leader at IBM and PwC Consulting. And thank you so much for on the audience for joining us and for your active participation and questions. Really appreciate that.
Let me say one last thing, Pian.
Yeah,
and one thing that hasn't come up.
Mm-hmm.
AI can also help you if it gets access to the infrastructure of the company
Mhm.
with multi-generational management and multi-generational culture. Because yes, we still have some baby boomers left. They're still floating around, but we've got Gen Xers, we've got millennials, we've got Gen Zs. They all have their different attributes. I know it sounds, you can't just put people in a bucket and say that they'll do this, that, next thing. But there's enough research shown to show that the environment they grew up in, the different decades that they lived in, they had an impact on them.
Mhm.
And we've got now, I really feel for the Gen Z folks who, as they were coming through the formative years and coming into employment, lived through the horrors of that pandemic. And it gave them different ways to working and different ways of thinking. So multi-generational workforces are with us. Some of them are falling down dramatically. So use AI to capture some of the old relationship skills that the baby boomers have, and use AI to understand the questions of, and if anybody gets the chance to have a look at this short film, The Story of Z, please, please, please look at it. The mental health and resilience questions that so many people in that generation are facing just now. Others are as well, but they've sort of been dragged through it, and it is impacting them, and it's going to impact the way that we create the culture in our workplace.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
that's very much true. Different generations have different preferences. I actually heard from multiple uh, people that I talked to at different companies that they think the younger generations actually are more comfortable talking to the AI sometimes
Yeah.
than talking to a human coach or human managers, because they're kind of grow up in the age of in like they comfortable texting with each other, and so it's not too different for them to message and talk to an AI. So it's very interesting.
I'll give you one last throwaway for nothing. And there was a study done in the late 80s when call centers were starting, and they wanted to find out what accent or what heritage was the most trustworthy. Tiffany's smiling because she's heard this before. And the outstanding result was that a Scottish accent was the most trustworthy, followed by an Irish accent. Okay. So if you can get, if you're really looking to build and maintain that trust, Pianpian, yeah, you got a little Scottish brogue in there somewhere. You never know, it just might help on the trust front.
We'll have you to be the official voice.